Most editing tutorials you come across are things like the basics of Premiere Pro, how to color grade in Davinci Resolve, or maybe something like how to use awesome looking transitions in the best free video editing software out there to make your videos way more cool. Stuff like that. However, that's not what this video is. Hi, I'm Noah from Anything Cameras, the channel that focuses on helping you improve your filming and photography. And as I said, this isn't your normal editing tutorial. Instead of like the kinds of tutorials I mentioned already, this tutorial is going to be much more abstract, for lack of a better word. However, hopefully this is even more informative and eye-opening than those kinds of tutorials. Like our last 4 videos in this mini-series, this is going to focus much more on the story instead of the technicalities. However, I will be showing you some general video editing tips in the software I will be using. And it doesn't matter what software you use. I'm going to use a free one so you can follow along if you want. But if you want to use a software that you like, then that's cool also. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so here I am in the editor. I'm using the free version of Davinci Resolve 17. It's currently in beta, as you can see down here. So there are some bugs like these photography examples. The previews of them are way off because of my color management settings, but that doesn't matter. So the first step to telling your story through video editing is getting your footage in here and putting it in the timeline. Now, I've already done this. This is a video from just over 2 years ago, where young me is talking about long exposure photography. So I just put these clips in the order that they were shot in. And so right here, this is the first talking clip.
Hello guys, I'm Noah from Anything Cameras, the channel that focuses on helping you improve your...
And there's just so many things wrong with this shot, including the depth of field, the audio, my having to yell over the stream. I don't know what our mic setup was, but that doesn't matter. We're just going to try to tell a good story, as well as educate people on long exposure photography using the clips we have at our disposal. Now, I probably won't actually post this, but that's besides the point. Now, the first thing I want to talk about in terms of story and video editing is ordering your clips. Obviously, you want your clips to be in an order that makes sense, that flows together. You don't want them to be jumbled up. If you have a movie, you don't want the final battle to be before everything else. Because the story is supposed to build up to that. So similar with ordering clips in an education, from an educational standpoint, you have to make sure that the information you're giving makes sense as it flows throughout the video, and of course this has to be taken into account when you're planning the video and when you're shooting it. So this is actually a step that is important throughout the whole process, pre-production, production, and post-production. Now, in our case, we shot all the clips in order, pretty much, except for the B-roll clips, which I will get to later. So we don't have to worry too much about that. I'm actually going to drag these B-roll clips up to the video 3 track, and then drag all these story clips, or rather audio clips, video and audio clips, together so that we can edit these videos first, and then add the B-roll in where it makes sense for the story. So now all my talking clips are here, they are in order, they're all next to each other. Of course you're seeing previews from the video 3 track, that's beside the point. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to go through here and you want to trim out all the bits that don't add to the story or the main content of the video. So for example, here, just before I start talking, I totally missed my cue. Right here, I want to just trim off this bit because it doesn't add anything. It's just me standing there looking stupid. So then, of course, you want to go through the whole video, and you want to remove sections of clips that you don't need. That could be spots of silence like that. It could be things you say redundantly. It could be any number of things, and depending on the content you tend to film, whether that's short films, educational, other type of entertainment, whatever it is, you're going to have different things you need to remove, or maybe even time-lapse or whatever. But then there is ordering extra clips, such as the B-roll. And now here this clip, I'm actually walking down toward the stream. It's in 120 FPS, so super, super slow. I wouldn't want it that slow. And I'm setting up my camera. So this shot I would probably want somewhere after the main intro. Let's take a listen.
And hopefully after this, you'll be able to take some great long exposure shots. Let's get right to it. Right. With and without ND filter, but really the aperture doesn't matter for image stacking. And
Alright, so I think that the best place to put this clip is right after the intro when I say let's get to it. Now I'm thinking of putting it here because this is kind of the first step to taking long exposure photography. You gotta get to the location, you gotta set your camera up. But yeah, it's supposed to kind of signal the start of the process, the journey of taking a long exposure shot. So now I'm just gonna increase the speed. And I'm just gonna trim off this first bit before I start walking. And probably trim off the end bit too. I mean, right there you're just looking at my butt, so. Yeah, trim it right there. There we go. And now to continue this story, just to add a bit of accent too, we're going to show the stream, the subject, what I'm going to be photographing, because if anything, that's the first step. You got to decide what you're photographing. So this is just emphasizing that. You can already see it in the first clip where I'm walking down to the little stream. So you don't need to necessarily have this at first, but you can have this clip, roll it through a few seconds. I'll probably just cut it off there. I like the slow-mo. That just adds more of a calm, yeah, just more of a calm feeling. So now I can drag this next clip over, see where I end.
let's do some shots without filters first.
So I say do some shots without filters, so I probably want some kind of shot of the lens that has the filter on it. So clearly we didn't get the all the shots we needed, but you get the idea. You just want to have every clip, every piece of B-roll or cinematic sequence or whatever, you want to have it. You want to have it make sense with the story and the process and the journey, whatever kind of journey the video is going to take the viewer on. Now, I also want to touch on color grading here for a bit. We did talk about this in, I think it was the last episode a little bit, but since I'm here in the post-production, I'm going to kind of retouch on it, show you some of the different controls, kind of get into the technicalities of it a little bit, just so you can understand how to achieve the look you're wanting. And that's the most important part of color grading, is having a certain look that you want, having that pictured in your mind beforehand, and then achieving that look through the color grading. So we're in a pretty flat picture profile. It's also a pretty flat, cloudy, boring, yucky day at the time this was shot. So it's pretty flat and boring. I want this kind of, as I said, to be a calm, relaxing feeling, kind of easy to look at, for lack of a better term. I mean, you have easy listening kind of as its own genre or feeling of music. So easy looking, I'm coining the term, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. So the first step I'm going to do is kind of raise the exposure up a little bit using the curves, because it's a little bit dark, a little bit underexposed. About there is good, but I also want to boost the shadows a tad so it's not too contrasty. I'm going to add a little bit of saturation, even though the colors aren't that nice. It's a lot of brown, not much blue. So yeah, there is an element to color grading of just making it look nice, but that's not it. It's the feeling that making it look nice gives to the viewer. It doesn't make them all grossed out, like the muddy shot you see here, trying to make it look as nice as possible will just enhance that calming look I'm going for, or whatever look you're going for. Maybe if you want the viewer to feel really mad, then you can really make it super contrasty, like so. Make it look gross, maybe add some reds in there. I don't know. I'm just gonna undo all that, take it back to how I wanted, and now to help make it look nice, give it that calming feeling, I'm gonna make it a little bit cooler, the image. I'm thinking around there, actually. And then the other thing is, this clip is telling a story. It's showing the subject of the photograph, it's showing what the day was like, and if you can capture how the day was like, what the stream was like, then the viewer will feel like they're being taken on this journey of taking these long exposure shots with you and feel connected to the content. So, since it's winter, though it was a really warm day, as you can see by my t-shirt in these other clips, I want to make it a bit cooler to emphasize that it's that time of year, because in the winter usually it isn't all warm and sunny. Already I'm liking this image quite a bit, actually, and I don't know how much more I would touch. I could bump the saturation up a little bit, maybe shift the hue a little bit more magenta, maybe around there. Alright, another thing I want to touch on are transitions and effects and titles, because oftentimes I think these are sort of overused. So, for example, when cutting between two shots, maybe the end of this intro and this next clip, beginners or whoever, I don't know, not necessarily beginners, you might be inclined to take a video transition like this hexagonal iris and put it over here so that you have this cool looking transition like that. But I want to pose a question to you. What do you think this transition adds to the shot? No, seriously, I'm serious. What do you think this transition adds to the edit? Do you think it adds something? Do you think it enhances the story? Now, if you said yes, don't feel bad. And in your opinion and other people's opinions, you might have your own reason that I'm simply not seeing for why you might want this transition here. But just making it look cool or look professional or whatever you're trying to achieve with this, or whatever along those lines you're trying to achieve by adding a transition in, may not be the best reason, and therefore it may not be the best thing to place that transition there. Usually when I use transitions, first of all, it's not this type of transition. I'm much more likely to use something like cross dissolve, or depending on if I'm doing an in-camera transition, then I will use one of these just to make it a little bit smoother. And that usually it signals to the viewer some kind of passage of time or change of location. The transition is meant to take the viewer smoothly through some gap in the story that just isn't important. It's not a gap in the story, but rather a gap in the time that the subject is experiencing. Usually I would not recommend using these types of transitions unless you think that it enhances the story or enhances the content in some way, versus just making the video look more cool. Now, sometimes you might want effects for reasons other than telling your story, actually. For instance, if we were to take one of these long exposure shots, maybe this one, we put it in here. First of all, this is a terrible, terrible job I did editing this photo. That's besides the point, though. If I just play this is going to be part of the video. Maybe I'm talking over it like I am now. It doesn't matter. it's kind of boring. It's not gonna keep the viewer's attention probably. So there are cases like this where you might want to add some kind of effect. In this case, I would tend to zoom it out a bit. You've probably seen this on our channel before. Keyframe that, go to the end, zoom it in a bit more, like so. And now this will zoom in, adding a bit of motion, adding a bit of visual interest to the shot, which, yeah, it does matter. It's not all about story all the time. And then usually I would just go and I would add a blanking fill, like so. So now it plays and we have that nice, visually interesting shot there. I'd like to give one more example of when some type of effect might be useful for story, just so you have some more ideas in your mind as you go into editing your video or short film or whatever. Now this effect, again, isn't always used to enhance the story, per se, but I think that, at least when I use it, it is to enhance the content, to give a more personable and genuine nature to the content, and the person acting in the content, as well as add a bit of comedy to the shot. So, what do I mean here? Well, let me import a new piece of footage as an example. Now, this piece of footage that I have right here is the exposure triangle video for video that we did sometime last year, where Leaf explains how the exposure triangle affects video, basically. Now, I chose this video because there were a number of funny mistakes and bloopers that I can use as an example. So let me just find one here.
Because your frame rate
Wow, the first place I checked. So, what I'm going to do for this effect, this effect is going to be a, like an error screen and a rewind to emphasize the fact that he messed up his talking here, like I'm kind of doing, which makes him seem more genuine, because instead of just taking out the mistake, making it seem perfect, and adds a bit of a funny aspect to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut here before he gets out the words he's trying to speak. I'm going to duplicate this clip. I'm going to rewind it, so if I go to clip speed, I can reverse the speed, like so, and now that plays in reverse. I'm just actually going to go to clip speed one more time. I'm going to make this fast forward instead of just play in reverse rewind, I mean, by going to 200. Like so. Then for the error screen, I'm just going to import another piece of footage. This is a stock clip that I have of just some kind of TV error screen kind of thing. And now this is a very, very mock-up effect here, and you might want to go as far as add some TV static and a little rewind symbol or something, but it looks like this.
Because your frame rate because your shutter speed is determined by...
So there we go. Just another example of how effects can be used in content for an effective purpose. Now I also mentioned titles. Again, just general guidelines here. You want to have them serve some purpose, whether that's adding a bit of humor to the content, noting a certain location or time that the content's supposed to take place at, maybe dividing up sections if you are doing an educational video. It just has to have a purpose and not be pointless. Hopefully, though, you got some tidbits out of this tutorial. You understand why you might want to edit something a particular way. And if you didn't see the previous 4 parts to this series, be sure to go check them out. And I highly recommend you check them out. Leaf is a much better host than I am, so I think you will be pleased if you go watch those.